Session 49. Ex-Brigadier Mustansir Billah. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We begin with the name of Allah, who is permanently compassionate and incomprehensibly merciful. And we begin with the blessings on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last and final prophet. We continue with Surah Fatiha, the Qur'an summarized. Here. And in that surah, third ayat, Malike Yawmuddin, the absolute master of the day of requital, the day of justice, absolutely just reward and punishment based on every individual's performance as demanded by Qur'an and Sunnah. The performance as demanded by Qur'an and Sunnah. Now, 82 Surah Al-Infatar, verse 1 to 5. Is samaan fatarat wa zal kawaibu an tasrat wa izal hijaru fujirat wa izal qaburu busirat alimat nafsum ma qaddamat wa akharat. When the cosmos universe split, and when stars fission and break away, and when oceans overflow, and when the graves are slit open, then one would say, no, see, whatever good and the bad he has done sent forward, which ended with his life, and good and the bad he has left behind, whose effects continued even after his death. Iza zulzilatil arzu zilzalaha. Man would definitely encounter resurrection and feel least enchanted when the earth is intensely shaken through devastating earthquakes. Wa akhrajatil arzu asqalaha. And when the earth throws out its loads, all its holdings, all the treasures and recordings of all the deeds of each and every individual. This would be at the second great bugle, when the resurrected man will still be adjusting himself to the new horrifying environment, and the orbitant disbelievers will find it difficult to reconcile to their revival. The faithful believer would not be in such a miserable plight, for this would be expected by him. The disbelievers would ask, who has woken them from sleep? They would be replied, this is the day which the merciful Allah had promised, and the prophets he had sent all spoke the truth. The earth would throw out all the gold, silver, most precious minerals and stones, and men would recapitulate and ponder that they usurped, embezzled, and killed other men, and waged wars, and ruined, destroyed other nations and people. Only for such detritus rubbish. That is only for such detritus rubbish. Today, it's all there, but of no use to him. Rather, all have to pay heavily for these ephemeral, temporary attractions. Immediately at that time, the earth, on the directions of Allah, would replay, display, reproduced, recast all his or her good and bad deeds to every individual. Whereas the pious, the God fearing, would be enamored, delighted to see their deeds called back again, the disbelievers sinful, terribly orbitant, would cry out as to what is the matter with the earth. وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا, and the wonder-struck man would say, what is the matter with it? Having taken the severe swinging, consecutive jolts of the earth, seen the worthlessness of gold and minerals, now lost in the ramifications of his resurrection, the disbeliever, sinful, faces presageful shock in the entr'acte prior to being pushed to stand before Allah for the proceedings. All will have their good and bad deeds, if not forgiven by Allah. All will have their good and bad deeds, if not forgiven by Allah, replayed, reacted, and reenacted before them. Man shall be rubberneck, mouth agape in wonder. Yawmazin tuhaddisu akhbaraha, that eventual promised day man would be facing an impasse when the earth would disclose, give out all its news, display all that happened on it, all deeds of human beings. As reported by Rabia Harsi, Prophet Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last and final prophet, stated, be careful of the land, earth, it is your mother. That is, it knows your number. It knows your number. Whoever does something good or bad on it, it will definitely convey the news. Whoever does something good or bad on it, it will definitely convey the news, information, Tabrani. Man will have little option but to accept their guilt when all the sins would be shown. Deeds involving wine, women, and wealth will be exposed by another three W's: what, where, and when of the earth. Deeds involving wine, women, and wealth will be exposed by another three W's: what, where, and when. That is, what was done, where was it done, and when was it done. And by the time, my apologies, men will then get their smartphones, tablets, movies, films. Men will get their smartphones, tablets, movies, films, and by the time he reaches to stand before Allah, he'll know that Allah knows everything. There is nothing missing. There is just no escape. In spite of knowing everything, Allah has made foolproof, florid arrangements to meet the ends of justice for the satisfaction of man. First, angels recording every bit of his words and deeds in the scrolls. That is 50 Surah Kaf, verse 17 and 18, and Surah Al-Infitar, verses 10 and 12. He will be asked to go through his doings of life. Today, you are yourself enough to take account. The verse states, that is Al-Surah Bani Israel, verse 14, today, you are yourself enough to take account. Then the earth and the environment would reproduce his voice and recast his images in various deeds. Actions replayed that he can see for himself and ruminate that he was running to the wrong end. Thereafter, all the parts of the body, his hands, feet, eyes, and ears, etc., would give out all. As to how these were used by him, this is verse 65, Surah Yasin. More so, as an acme of excellence of evidence, his heart would come clean, open out, and disclose all that he had kept in it. His thoughts, his intentions and objectives, and actual motives behind all his deeds. This is Surah Al-Adiyat, verse 10. The shocked man would virtually say, "You too, Brutus?" The shocked man would virtually say, "You too, Brutus?" Then false Caesar. His organs would reply that they were speaking on the orders of the one on whose orders everything else is talking. Verse Surah Fuzilat, verses 20 and 22. Having been comprehensively unmasked and beaten, man, clearly stumped, would not be able to make even a weak defensive effort or quote scriptures in his defense as he does here. Now on the last legs, he'll make his last gasp and apportion the blame on others, even the dear ones, for having caused all these sins, misguiding him and encircling him. The devil would scowl and renounce that he did not catch him by the nose to take him astray. The devil would scowl and renounce that he did not catch him by the nose to take him astray. And so will all other scoundrels scrag him and deign that he went on the loose himself. No use being frivolous and blaming others for his own follies and foolishness. It will be an extremely sweltering hot day. He'll protest with the earth, but the earth would say, "Bi-anna rabbaka awha laha." Replying man's protest, the earth, as though it was a pig-headed question, would say, the earth, as though it was a pig-headed question, would say that it has reproduced all because your Rabb ordered it. That it has reproduced all because your Rabb ordered it to do so. There will be no intermediary bosses, leaders, or heads. Allah will be in direct command of everything that day. Every creation will obey the omnipotent, all-creating. Even now, Allah is being obeyed because everything is being retained and recorded and stored by the angels, the earth, the organs of human body, and the heart, in manner Allah has made them capable of. Obviously, the skeptical would have an opportunity to laugh at the disclosure of such an organelle biological function of structures, unless the scientists say the scan master, that is scan expert, the noise master expert, confirm that all sounds and images on earth are being recorded, saved, and can be reproduced. That day, all affiliations, all relationships would crumple, give away, except the relationship affiliations of similar beliefs and deeds. And mankind would be sifted, hedged, grouped accordingly. Man shall stand, await the pleasure of Allah, to see, face the consequences, reward or punishment of his deeds. He will have all the time, about 10,000 years, to keep peering, looking closely at his deeds, to find to his pleasure or dismay that there isn't an iota of good that is missing and not a fig of bad that is not recorded. It was all super computerized, absolutely and perfectly. Allah has taken measures, ensured that His message, His word reaches all. None would pretend ignorance. None would pretend ignorance. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَصْدُرُ النَّاسُ أَشْتَاتًا لِيُرَوْا أَعْمَالَهُمْ. The day mankind would be sifted in various categories according to their deeds, to face the consequences, good or bad, of their doings. To face the consequences, good or bad, of their doings. The absolute elite, that is the prophets, siddiqs, shaheeds, that is martyrs, companions of prophets, certain others. Then the people of the right, pious and faithful believers, earmarked for heaven. And the people of the left, disbelievers, sinful, earmarked for hell, would be the three major breakdowns of mankind. The people of the right would stand as ummahs of respective prophets. The people of the left would be hedged in other groups according to the people they resembled in faith, beliefs, deeds, appearances and habits, lifestyles, etc., and then according to the similarity of the sins. Standing in various categories, everyone will have to account alone and getting heebie-jeebies with nervousness and fear. The elite and the ones of the right would be enamored to see their reward, and the disbelievers sinful shown their sticky, miserable end and block, and the disbelievers and sinful shown their sticky, miserable end and block. All their deeds would be elucidated precisely with absolute exactitude. There will be nothing elusive and nothing missing. Every deed, however small, insignificant, carries weight. Apparently, immaterial sins can pile up gradually and eventually become unmanageable and lead to infernal, damned, catastrophic end. I repeat that apparently immaterial sins can pile up gradually and eventually become unmanageable and lead to an infernal, damned, catastrophic end. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. Then whoever has performed even a minuscule of good in this world would see it recorded there. Then whoever has performed even a minuscule of good in this world would see it recorded there. Whoever does not attribute any associates to Allah and believes Prophet Muhammad to be his prophet, last and final, will ultimately and finally enter the heaven, though he may go to hell initially for his overwhelming sins. He will be rewarded for the good deeds which had proved insufficient compared to his sins. He will be rewarded for his good deeds which had proved insufficient compared to his sins. Every pious deed is therefore an immitigable, permanent, and eternal reality which does not go unrewarded. Every pious deed is therefore an immitigable, permanent, and eternal reality which does not go unrewarded. Allah has promised to reward if one refrains from giving companions to Allah, doesn't indulge in shirk, or negating the finality of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have stated, "Whosoever gives even as less as half a date in the way of Allah from his right hand, Allah respects it." The Prophet, peace be upon him, reported to have stated, "Whosoever gives even as less as half a date in the way of Allah from his right hand, Allah respects it. Then it is agglomerated, formed into a mountain-like mass for him with Allah, till it increases in the size of mountain, just like you look after a calf." Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Musnad Ahmad. As narrated by Abu Zar Razilullah Ta'ala Anhu, the Prophet, peace be upon him, stated, "Do not look down upon even the slightest good that you can do. Do not look down upon even the slightest good that you can do, even if it be as apparently insignificant as dealing with your brother in faith smilingly. As dealing with your brother in faith smilingly." Muslim. The punishment for sin is precisely equal to the gravity, the noxious, harmful effects of the sin itself, whereas the initial reward for any pious deed is increased tenfold or 30 times or even as much more as Allah pleases. As per Anas Razilullah Ta'ala Anhu, the Prophet, peace be upon him, stated, "Anything a believer faces which perturbs him is in fact a retribution of those minor sins, mistakes, offenses which he has committed." Ibn Jarir, Ibn Abi Hatim, Bahiki. So these would not be counted against him on the day of decision. Ayyub Ansari Razilullah Ta'ala stated, narrated that the Prophet said in explaining this verse, that is, "Faman yamal miskala zaratan khairan yara," stated, "Whoever among you, the believers, does a pious deed, he'll get the reward hereafter. And who commits a wrong, he'll face its retribution here in the form of suffering and diseases." Jazakallah. That's all for today. Please pray for me, ex-Brigadier Mustansir Billah.